1. About 10 years ago, I was working in Vientiane in Laos. There was a requirement to wear motorcycle helmets, but nobody took it seriously. My helmet had a very loose strap that hung down under my chin. If I tilted my head, the helmet would fall off. I wore it like this for about 5 months. One day, I stepped out of a cafe, sat in my motorbike, and was overcome by an overwhelming urge to tighten my helmet strap. It was like a thought that came from outside me. The strap was knotty tight, and it took me about a full 3 minutes to untie it and fasten it safely. All the time I was asking myself, why am I doing this? Helmet fastened tight and secured, I started my motorcycle and joined a 3-lane highway. I was in the middle lane, and to my left was a truck. I noticed the truck was slowing down to a stop, and I continued to overtake it. But a split second later, I understood why the truck had stopped. From out in front stepped 3 little girls. They were only 7 or 8 years old, all on a little pink bicycle, astride it but walking across the road. I was traveling at about 40 to 45 miles per hour. I think my last thought before crashing into them was, oh no, not little girls. I don't remember the impact. I just remember waking up on the road with a young, pretty woman kneeling down beside me, looking at me concerned. I again got a message from outside me, but this time it said, get her phone number. The only thing I could think of to say was, where are the girls? Where are the girls? As I looked around me, people had gathered around me and told me not to get up. But I stumbled around asking until someone pointed up a street. There, the 3 girls were pushing their bike up on the back wheel. It was completely bent in half. They looked back at me anxiously as they hurried to get away from the scene. Someone told me they thought they killed me and they were scared. I sat down on the curb, tourists and locals gathering around me, explaining how far I had flown from the impact. Apart from scrapes and concussion, I was fine. I asked for a cigarette. I never smoke, but my nerves. I looked into the girl's eyes again. I don't remember what country she was from. The message came to my mind again, get her number, get her number. I don't know, perhaps I lacked the confidence at the time, I never asked. But I've always felt the whole situation was set up for me to connect with her. Somewhere in another dimension, I know I did. But not this one. I have also never understood how I could hit 3 little girls' legs at 40 miles per hour, a heavy motorcycle, and me at that speed, and all 3 girls completely unscathed. What do you guys think? Those of you who have been around for a long time, have you heard of anything like this? It's also not the first time I was given some sort of divine matchmaking in this country. I almost feel like some benevolent entity tries to help me there. For the week or so I was healing, every time I moved and felt pain, I would smile. I felt like I absorbed all the pain so they could feel nothing. It made me feel so good. I don't know if that's related. Maybe it was a warning they needed to be safe. Maybe it wasn't about me. 2. So there was this noise. Except it wasn't just an inconceivably loud noise. It was also a vibration, a feeling. A shockwave that made my whole body tremble, and ears ring, and hair stand on end, and activate my fight or flight, drown out all other senses, noises, sights, sounds, and thoughts in a way that was so overwhelming and all-encompassing. It made me feel a way I had never felt, or thought it would be possible to feel. It was like being ripped apart. It was like being caught in a tornado, or struck by lightning. I felt myself and everything around me within a 1,000-mile radius, or possibly the entire planet, was about to be destroyed. The only way I can think to describe it is experiencing a nuke like Hiroshima. Being right in the zone of its detonation because it was both silent and also deafeningly loud, and had this eerie quality of making time stop, an eerie, evil quality, that I was being watched and hunted by something truly massive and with sinister intentions. I was sitting in a chair at my back patio when suddenly, What sounds like an invisible plane crash in the sky without the plane, or the crash, gets louder and louder until it's all I can hear. My entire body was shaking uncontrollably, and the noise was all I could hear and feel. It drowned out all other senses, and dulled my brain, and jolted my body like an electric shock. I believe something primal inside me recognized just how dangerous whatever was radiating this colossal, vibrating noise had to be, because I felt totally hopeless, and totally helpless, and totally at the mercy of whatever was making this noise. And I knew that it had no mercy, because his heart was black and cold and as infinite as the depthless well or a black hole singularity or the universe itself. A deep despair filled inside with the crushing realization that this force or entity behind the noise existed, and I was also frozen stiff and planted into my chair, because my body was petrified, and seemed aware that to run would be pointless. No distance would be far enough to ever outpace or escape the extent of the reach of whatever was making this noise. It was out of the realm of physical possibility, like a wingless insect trying to climb out of an active volcano from the inside. It seemed like suddenly there was no one around except me, and I became hyper-aware of my surroundings and oddly, of my own minuscule size relative to whatever must be causing this seemingly infinitely boundless noise, of how fragile the physical world around me was, and how easy to destroy everything around me was for miles on end, as though it could be vaporized in an instant by whatever was causing this noise. It was sort of like what I imagine a whale would sound like, with that eerie echoing, far-away, deafeningly loud quality that seems almost otherworldly, and also somehow alive and conscious. Like that feeling astronauts get when they suddenly feel so small, so tiny, compared to the vastness of outer space. That's how I felt. Coupled with the feeling that some being or machine, possibly invisible, had suddenly appeared and began permeating the sky, the cosmos, the atmosphere around the planet, for what seemed like miles on end. It seemed at once to be a considerable distance away, and right beside me. I truly believe whatever invisible force made that noise in the sky was either not of this world, or otherwise it was from Earth, but some sort of massive stealth craft or shockwave-inducing weapon, no one is aware of or knows anything about. It could have been an ancient sentient being like an alien, or a conscious force field traveling the cosmos for 1 billion years. It could have been a gargantuan Godzilla-like animal that lives in the center of the Earth, that crowned momentarily and cried out to the cosmos. It could have been an atmospheric weapon or climate control device developed for $1 trillion by the US military. But its intentions were definitely sinister, and it was massive. And it went away after about 30 seconds, and suddenly everything around me went back to normal again. It was one of those things you don't really talk about because it's too weird. I figured the place for it to be known and conveyed is here. 3. So 2 nights ago, I woke up in the middle of the night to something hitting me in the head. I even have a bruise and bump in my forehead. The thing is, I have no idea what could have hit me. So I currently live in my car, and I was car camping in a Cracker Barrel parking lot. They allow that. I usually go to bed relatively early, then get up early so that I can leave and not be in anyone's way the next day. So I went to bed at around 9 p.m., watched a couple YouTube videos, and I was about to watch one more, but then decided not to because I'm trying to watch less, and instead just called it a night. It was probably around 10 p.m. when I fell asleep. My car is long enough that I can lay down fully on a simple makeshift mattress. I was sleeping on my back. To my left, below my shoulder, from a laying down position, I have a suitcase with clothes and things, and on top of it, a fold-out desk which I basically use as a nightstand. So when I fell asleep, I put my phone, keys, and wallet on the nightstand. And to my right, I had a small fan running because it gets super hot sleeping in a car at night. The best way to describe it is that I was shocked awake by something hitting me in the head and then in the teeth. It felt like something had fallen onto me because it felt like whatever it was then fell down in my right armpit. But since I'm in a tight space in a car, nothing could have fallen down at me. I couldn't have hit myself either because my left arm was wedged between my torso and the suitcase, and my right arm was keeping the fan in place. I had to squirm around just to move my hands to check my face. I thought that it was my phone for some reason, so I started looking around to see if I could find it. There was nothing there. It had felt like it had gotten hit by the corner of my phone. I couldn't find anything at all. Then I realized that it was still up on the nightstand, where I put it before falling asleep. When I turned it on to check the time, it even still had the YouTube video opened that I decided not to watch. It was around 11:45 p.m. I have a rechargeable lantern, so I turned it on, and I just couldn't find anything at all. I felt really uncomfortable, but there wasn't exactly anywhere I could go. As I was thinking about it, I started to remember what I was dreaming about, I guess. And I realized that the reason why I thought it was my phone is because I was dreaming that I was laying down and looking at my phone. You ever drop your phone in your face when lying down? I think that's what I did in my dream. It was as if I dropped the phone in my dream and brought it with me into real life to hit me in the face. Then it disappeared. I have a Swiss Army knife that I got for a birthday, and I always make it a point to keep it with me because you never know when you might need it. I always carry it in my bag, and I always carry my bag when going somewhere. One time, my girlfriend and I were going to her hometown. We met up with some friends and went drinking outside. It was in a park in front of a theater, a place where most people our age hang out easily. We brought some drinks with us. Some beers, ciders, etc. A friend asked if we had a bottle opener, so I pulled out my Swiss Army knife and opened the bottle. I remember we all commented on how practical it is to have it, but no one bothers to carry it. I've placed my knife in some steps, as I was expecting to open more bottles soon. It started raining heavily pretty quickly, and we took our stuff and took shelter. When the rain subsided, we decided to go home. When my girlfriend and I noticed I didn't pack the knife and remembered I've left it on the steps. It was pretty late, and we decided we'll look for it tomorrow early morning. When we got back to the park the next day, the knife was gone. We searched around for it, but nothing. I had to accept I've lost the knife, and we started packing for our trip back home. While we were driving back, at some point I started saying how it's a shame I've lost the knife. I find it very dear. And even though I could easily get another knife, I kind of got attached to this one. We were about to enter our house, and we made another couple of comments about the knife. We unpacked and all, and I was taking out some documents to put in my top drawer, where I usually keep this stuff. As I opened the drawer, there it was. The red Swiss Army knife was placed right in the middle of the drawer. I was shocked. I quickly called out to my girlfriend. We couldn't believe it. It was my knife. After the amazement subsided, we started coming up with theories as to how it could have happened. One idea was that I never even brought the knife and that the beers were opened some other way, but we knew that wasn't true. Also, I never keep it in my drawer. Ultimately, we didn't come up with a good answer. I've come to accept the whole thing as very positive. Someone or something obviously cared enough about me to make sure I got reunited with my knife. This is the story of a teleporting knife. I'm not looking for answers, but I'd be curious to know what your experiences are with this. Some people might suggest that my girlfriend actually brought it with her and planted it in the drawer to surprise me. This is not possible, as I was the first to enter the house, and went straight for the drawer. 5. This took place back in 2002. I was about 18 years old at the time. I had spent a few months out of state staying with my sister when I decided to head back home to see my best friend, Tony. Once I got into town, I gave him a call from a payphone. We spoke for about 20 minutes and he was telling me how he left his wife, has a new place and was seeing someone else. I told him I needed a couch so I could visit for a few days, and he gave me his new address, followed by, "I'll be at a friend's house for a bit, but you can come over there too." They gave me the address for the friend and told me to look for the red Mazda. We hung up and I walked across town maybe an hour to his friend's house. Once I got there, I found a lot of red cars, but not that specific address. I was still looking at each to figure out which was a Mazda, but stopped when I heard a very distinct laugh. There is only one person with a laugh like that. "Sup, chicken legs?" Tony had a girl standing beside him, and I walked over to greet them. "Hi, Becky, I'm Nomad." Dude?" I said to Tony. "I still don't see the Mazda I'm supposed to find." "What Mazda? How'd you know her name?" "No, I broke up with Andy. I'm dating Becky now." "I know, you already told me that, and the Mazda you told me to look for." "What? When?" "On the phone, dude. Literally less than 2 hours ago." I don't have a phone. It was shut off a few weeks ago when Andy and I broke up." "Huh. No, I just spoke to you. You live in a trailer by the bowling alley now, right? You left Andy because she slept with Mark. You met Becky at a party. You have a new job hanging chickens. You told me to come here to find you. Dude, I spoke with you. I know your voice. You even told me I could crash on your couch." "Yeah, that's all true, and of course you can. But I didn't talk to you on the phone. That wasn't me." Becky then says, "Tony, you know how you were passed out on the floor and talking in your sleep last night? I think you were talking to him." It turns out that Tony got really drunk and passed out face down on the kitchen floor. Becky had to drag him to the bedroom, the whole while he was talking to someone. Guess what he was talking about. P.S. I never found the Mazda. R.I.P. Tony. 1982 to 2004. I still hear that laugh. 6. So one summer day, my friend and I were pretty bored with nothing to do in San Jose, California. We were recent high school graduates with nothing to do. He suggested that we explore the S.J. Hills, mainly to see the sights once the sun set. He's the type that loves sunsets and sunrises. All the sights and such. I declined mainly because I knew getting to the top would mean crazy windy roads, which my stomach cannot handle at all. I was a guy in the friend group known to be temperamental with food, heights, anxiety, you name it. Now he knows this to be the case, but insists. Eventually, he seemingly gives up, and instead suggests we pick up some friends, including a girl who had the hots for him at his then job at Nob Hill Grocers, and he suggests we drive around, maybe grab some food with everyone, etc. So we make our way around San Jose and pick up said girl and 2 other friends. We drive for a while, stop for some snacks at a random liquor store, and eventually make our way towards Eastside San Jose. At this point, I'm weary about where we're going, and of course we end up going up a hill. I immediately tell my friend to drop me off if we're going up to the top of the hill, or mountain. He insists we aren't going far, and that he found a spot where there were little to no windy roads. Something you should know is this is my best bud, like actual best friends. And we have gone through the ringer together, and he has pushed me to be my better self. Sometimes that means pushing me out of my comfort zone, so I'm assuming he did this for reasons stated. Anyway, we're driving, and we proceed up this mountain as the sun is setting. We park at a nice scenic stop overlooking a good amount of the city lights. At this point I'm nauseous, but not enough to cause any issues. However, our group decides that they want to go up higher, so long story short, I either stay there in the dark or head up with them. we're reaching the top. But at this point, we're making stops every 3 turns because I cannot handle it. I'm about to throw up. Everyone is concerned at this point, and we decide to head back down. Again, we're stopping every once in a while due to not wanting to yak in my best bud's newish car. And eventually the worst happens. I get my feared anxiety loop. At this point, I'm battling not shitting my pants and not yakking in the car. Luckily, our latest stop is what looks like a construction site of sorts. Just a simple 2-tractor setup, with some caution tape blocking off an area. But I spot a porta-potty about 500 feet up a slight incline towards the wooded construction zone area. I hightail it to the porta-potty while my friends chill in the car. I'm doing my business. Luckily, there is toilet paper. I hear cars going by down the road. But all of a sudden, I hear footsteps coming from the opposite area, further into the forest area. I get freaked out, but then I hear the voice of my best friend. He says he's up next and really needs to go too. I tell him to give me a minute and finish up my business. I come out of the potty and look around for my friend. I see no one around. So I figure he went back to the car instead of chilling in the dark, creepy woods. I get to the car, where I find all the friends looking over the city lights again. I ask my friend not to be long and that there is toilet paper, so not to worry. He looks at me and asks, "What?" I say he's up to take a dump. And he says he doesn't have to go. I then ask why he came all the way up to the porta-potty and potentially hear my explosive dumpage. Everyone starts looking at me funny, and I feel a joke coming. But they all look sort of spooked and had a look on their face like I was the one joking. Then I remember how I heard my friend's footsteps approaching from the woods instead of the street. I tell them exactly what happened, and they all look at me like I'm crazy. And maybe it was due to my anxiety and what felt like near-death experience going up and down windy roads. I brushed it off and figured they were pulling a fast one. I felt a huge relief as soon as we hit a long, straight stretch of road leading back into the city. We stop at a taco truck, and I grab some carbonated water and gum, which helps ease my stomach. I ask them if they were pulling a joke on me, and insist they all stayed by the car the whole time I was doing my business. Nothing like this has happened to me since, and I have no other theories to go off of than a glitch, or my own crazy head playing tricks on me. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the listen. 7. After being confused for a while, I'm still not convinced that I was dreaming. I have come to terms with the fact that my best friend disappeared for a couple of minutes today, in the morning. Yesterday night, I remember preparing notes for my best friend, from whom I was supposed to ask questions to help her prepare for her accountancy test. Tomorrow morning, we finished up the work by 12, wrapped up for the night after talking for a little, and then went off to sleep around an hour later. I was supposed to call her at 6 in the morning to make sure she was up and going for her practicals. As planned, my alarm rang at 6, and after snoozing it twice, I realized that I had already overslept 20 minutes, and I sprang up in panic. I checked my phone for time, and it was still 6. I assumed that I had a weird dream, and I was, in fact, just on time. After recollecting myself, I was all set up to call her, but while scrolling through my contacts, I could not find her. I scrolled the second time and then really rubbed my eyes, trying to get rid of the early morning fatigue I was feeling. I opened my eyes wide and searched once again, a little slowly, and nothing. I could not find her. I then switched applications and tried connecting to her on WhatsApp, but still nothing. At this point, I assumed I somehow lost her number, and that I deleted her WhatsApp too. So I went to Instagram to reach her, and the username just didn't exist. All her schedules, pictures, docs were missing from my phone, along with her email ID. I felt as if she just didn't exist. Just as I was panicking about not being able to find her, I tried doing several things like messing with the internet and reinstalling applications, but that didn't work either. After finally giving up and switching off my phone, I found her on Instagram through my laptop. I panickingly switched the phone back on and unexpectedly found her contact back up in my WhatsApp. I rang her up to ask her what the fuck just happened, only to get yelled at for waking her up this early. I also asked her about her practicals after explaining everything to her, and she said she had no such test coming up. This is fucking me up, and we both have no clue as to what happened with me this morning. I still have the notes I prepared with her, but she has no memory of studying this chapter with me recently. Her next upcoming test is of psychology, and apparently she has been studying for it for a week now. I can swear that the accountancy practical was definitely going to be held this very day, and now I feel completely clueless with no explanation. Does someone have any explanation for this? 8. A few days ago, I was with my sister, and we just got home from the mall. I was backing up into my parking spot. Note, we live in a condo, so it's a well-lit underground parking, and there's only a post on one side and one other car parked beside me on the other, when my sister and I suddenly hear a loud bump and crunch sound, as if I had just hit something. From the sound of it, I knew the damage would have left a pretty gnarly dent. I instantly brake and we both look at each other in shock. I asked my sister if that was me because I was genuinely confused, as I did not feel the car jump in any way. And I had done all my checks. Checking the mirrors, sticking my head out the window, glancing at the rearview camera. Before and as I'm backing up, I knew I had ample room, and the speed I was going did not match the sound of the damage we both heard. I was backing in slowly, of course. So now I'm freaking out, almost in tears, that I had just hit this expensive-ass Porsche, and that my insurance was gonna go through the roof. I put my car in park, and I tell my sister to go out and check the damages. She is doing a complete 360 inspection of my car and the other car, until I hear her shout that there is nothing. What? I get out myself and check the Porsche first. There are absolutely no scratches or dents. I walk all around it, back and forth, thinking it's all just a trick of the light, but nothing. It's in perfect, glistening condition. Not a single hair scratch. Which I would have seen since it's a black car. At this point, I'm thinking I might have hit the concrete post instead, so I check my car, feeling for any scratches or dents, but I find the same thing, nothing. Everything is perfect. I check if maybe something got caught in my tires that could have made that sound, but again, nothing. Weird. My sister and I go back and forth, talking about how we're both definitely sure we heard the same thing, but we just shrugged it off, thinking it might have been another car in the garage or something. The following day, my sister has to go to her friend's house to pick something up. I tell her she can drive because I woke up with another migraine, and since it's just nearby and a familiar way for her, she can use a bit more practice since she plans to get her G2 soon. As my sister quickly turns to drive out of the garage, I kid you not, we hear the exact same bump and crunch sound, except this time I feel the entire car slightly jolt as the side of the car hits and swipes a pole by the garage door. I tell her to pull up to the front of the building, and yep, there's a nice dent and scratch marks on the side. Pretty much the same damage I expected to see a few days prior. So this could be a glitch in the Matrix, or just an odd coincidence. Has anyone else ever experienced something similar? Please share them, since I'm genuinely curious. 9. So I have this thing where random items will just disappear, then randomly reappear. But sometimes things will also just randomly appear, but that's less common. My most prominent first memory of this was when I was about 10. I wore about 5 bracelets on each arm, and I took them off only to shower. So I routinely took my bracelets off to shower, and when I got out, they were gone. No one came in. My family is very noisy, and I would have heard someone come in. About a few months after this, they were in the very top shelf of our bathroom cabinet. Keep in mind, no one in our family could reach that shelf. The only way I got them was by climbing on the counter and really stretching. Fast forward to now, I'm 17. I was at my friend's house for homecoming in the beginning of October, and my lipstick went missing. It has been over a month, and I still haven't found it. I scoured every inch of wherever it could be, and it's just gone. This especially sucks because it was the best black lipstick I could find, but whatever. A couple of days ago, my phone went missing. It was on the middle of my couch, and I went into my room to grab something. I come out and it's gone. I look everywhere on it and in the couch. I look in my room and I come out of my room and it's back where it was. I could chalk it up to my friend taking it, but he was in the bathroom during all this, so I just don't know anymore. Now, to later that night. I'm getting ready for the football game that night as I am in marching band. In marching band, our uniform includes spats, which are white shoe coverings. I wear an XL size spat for context. I finish putting my spats on, and I grab my gloves, which were behind me on my chair. I grab another pair of spats, a size medium. I look at everyone in my section. They're all wearing spats. My first guess was it was my section member who was blind, as we need to help him out, but he was already wearing his full uniform, and they weren't even the right size for him. My second guess was a different section member who was completely forgetful, and I typically have to help her with the spats since they're very difficult to put on. She was fully dressed too, so I'm just sitting there with half my uniform on, completely confused about basically my entire life. Does anyone else experience stuff like this? It's just so goddamn weird. I don't even know what to make of it. And obviously, these aren't a lot of experiences, but they're so prominent in my mind, I had to share them. 10. This past summer, my fiancé's family and I drove up to New York for a week to visit her father's parents. For them, it was the first time since the pandemic. For me, it was the first time meeting them in person. It was also my first time in New York, which was really fun. Her grandparents live in Long Island, so I got a fairly nice experience. But I digress. At some point during the week, we decided it would be fun to visit a cidery a few times away. If anyone here is familiar with the Long Island Expressway, you may know how constantly busy it is. I didn't drive, and I'm thankful for it, because I'd have a difficult time adjusting. I did, however, pay very close attention to everything around me, since everything was new and exciting. Here's where the interesting bit happens. We're driving down the highway, and I'm casually looking at the cars and things go by. I noted on the trip that there were more Tesla cars here than back home, North Carolina, so it stood out when I saw one. We ended up passing a typical silver-colored Tesla, and I happened to get a look at the driver, an old man. He was driving normally, eyes on the road, no big deal, we pass him and continue. Not 2 minutes later, we're coming up on another Tesla, silver in color. Same lane, same old man driver. Except this time his head is turned in our direction, and he has this distressed look on his face. Almost like he had seen a ghost. I hadn't seen the license plate for the first Tesla, but I know this was the same old man we had passed previously. I thought it was incredibly strange. I didn't say anything at the time, thinking maybe I imagined it, or was asleep or something, as I tend to fall asleep in cars sometimes. However, on our way back home after the trip, we were all talking and keeping ourselves awake, and my fiancé's mother speaks up. I didn't want to alarm anyone at the time, but when we were coming back from the cidery yesterday, did anyone else see that Tesla that we passed twice? I immediately snapped my head to look at her and said, "You too?" And we both shared the notion that we hadn't gone crazy. She also was able to recall the distressed look in his face, staring at our car as we passed him. Definitely one of the strangest experiences I've had in recent memory. 11. It was my 18th birthday, and me and about 15 plus friends of mine had all just came back to my apartment building from a birthday dinner they had for me at TGI Fridays. The apartment building I grew up in is a tall building with only 2 elevators and 2 staircases. I lived on the 11th floor. Sometimes me and my friends or family my age would race elevators for fun as kids if we happened to have both elevators arrive at our floor at the same time. This was the case that night. Both elevators got to the lobby at the same time, and me and my friends packed into both elevators and hit the door close buttons at the same time. I heard the usual tone of the doors closing on both elevators, and they both closed within a split second of each other. There were about 7 or 8 of us packed into each elevator, but I was the only one in my elevator that lived in the building. I knew the ins and outs of racing elevators for fun. I knew that both elevators were equal in speed, and were fairly quick. It took maybe 10 seconds to get from the ground floor to my floor, the 11th floor. There was not a chance in hell that anyone could scale 11 flights of stairs quicker than that. I also knew that when both elevators were traveling in the same direction, me and my friends would be able to yell to each other through the elevator shaft, and talk to each other in transit, as long as the elevators left at the same time and went in the same direction, which they did. So me and my rowdy teenage friends were all laughing and shouting to each other from elevator to elevator. And we could hear each other, but about halfway up, the other elevator sounded more drowned out, like speaking into a fan, and then we stopped hearing them altogether. The way my old apartment building was designed, the elevators are in the very center of each floor, and each floor is just a long, single, rectangular hallway. My apartment was at the far corner of the building, as far as can be away from the staircases and elevators. When my elevator opened up with my friends in it, I was ready to make a mad dash toward my apartment door, hopefully just beating out the other elevator door as it should have been opening, with just enough time for me and my friends in my elevator to get a head start and win the race to my apartment. Instead, we all flew out of our elevator to see no one else coming out of the other. We didn't hear it open. We didn't hear several loud teenagers jump out like I had expected. It was as if the other elevator wasn't even used at the same time as we used ours, and our friends were nowhere to be found. I knew the timing of these elevators perfectly. I grew up in this building since I was a toddler, and had taken these up and down and raced friends and neighbors with them my whole life. I found it really odd that the elevators didn't open up at the same time. I also thought that maybe the other one just opened on another floor between the lobby and the 11th floor, which, of course, was a common thing to have happened, and would have been good news, since that would have meant we definitely won the elevator race. My elevator went as fast as it possibly could have gone, going straight from the lobby to the 11th floor. We all made our way down the hallway and into my apartment, and found that my family, neighbors, very sweet of them, had decorated the apartment with pictures of my friends and I, and surprised me with a cake. The strange part is that this whole surprise ensemble included all my friends who were in the elevator that went MIA. It was winter, and they already had their jackets off, and had thrown them onto my bed in my bedroom. And all looked as if they had already been hanging out inside the apartment for at least a few minutes. It made absolutely no sense. Both elevators left the lobby within the same second, and should have taken the exact same 10 seconds or so to reach my floor. But somehow, they had clearly got to my apartment minutes ago. I asked my friends in the other elevator how they got up there so fast, and I just got a confused reaction from everyone, including my friends that were in my elevator too. I was the only one who was left scratching my head at how everyone inside the other elevator seemed to teleport straight to my apartment somehow. Super fucking weird. I just shrugged off the experience as best I could at the moment, although it still has me wondering to this day how that happened. I'm a long-time reader of Glitch in the Matrix, and this memory always comes to mind when I start reading the latest posts. Let me know what you think, and thanks so much for listening. 12. This is an experience that has haunted me for 8 years. I was in high school. I was standing outside of my dad's house on the lawn at night. I had noticed the moon was very clear and full and wanted to go stare at it. I was by myself. The moon was directly overhead, so I tilted my head back to look at it. I stared at it for about a minute, then it slowly but visibly started to move across the sky. At first, I thought it was an illusion of the clouds moving past it, but then I realized that in order to keep it in sight, I was tilting my head farther and farther back until my neck was uncomfortable from it being backwards. It ended up moving a few degrees across the sky in a matter of a minute. For the whole minute I watched with a strange calmness and didn't take my eyes off it for a second. I think I was in disbelief and couldn't stop watching it because it was so insane. After a minute I realized something was really wrong, and I started panicking. I have a panic disorder. Here's where it continues to be weird. I ran back inside to my dad, hyperventilating and grabbing onto him for safety. We do not have a great relationship, and he is weird about my anxiety issues, so I try to never show this side of myself in front of him. He said, "What happened? What's wrong?" And I choked out, "The moon moved across the sky really fast." He didn't even ask any questions or for any clarification. He took me into the bathroom and told me to wash my face, which I did. That helped me breathe normally, but then I wanted to go back outside to see if the moon was in the same spot, or if it moved more while I wasn't watching. He wouldn't let me go back outside. He said, "You don't need to check on it." I kept saying I really wanted to, and he just kept saying, "You don't need to do that." Then he made me sit on the couch for about 30 minutes. After a while he said, "Okay, now let's go look together." So we looked. I couldn't tell where it was in relation to before or where it was supposed to be, but it was sitting still. His calm, no-questions-asked attitude in that moment was uncharacteristic to the point of being opposite of his personality. It was so weird to me that he kept repeating that I didn't need to look at it. The whole experience was 100% bizarre. 13. Tonight I believe my brother and I somehow got into a time loop or déjà vu. Something odd and nothing feels right anymore. My brother, 13, and myself, 25, were in a car waiting for a family to be done at Walmart. It's about 9:40-ish. We think nothing of waiting and just talk, passing the time as my brother tells me about school from his 6th grade adventures. Mainly about weird kids in class. Keep in mind we're in the back seat of a truck and are in the parking lot of Walmart. Looking to the right as I'm seated on that side, I see a man wearing a dirty shirt running with his daughter, as they wail and holler and laugh. Seeing this, my brother and I both laugh because it was kind of funny to watch. On the left side of the truck of my brother's side is a blue car. A man is packing that car but taking forever. So we go back to talking. About 2 minutes later, a group of 3 girls walk by the truck, laughing and saying random banter that I can't quite remember. Something along the lines of someone being so funny. They get in the car diagonal to the truck and laugh before pulling out and leaving. My brother notices the blue car guy finally leaving as well moments later. He commented with saying, "Finally." Here's the weird part. After we talk a little bit more and laugh with each other, suddenly we hear a familiar wail. I turned to the right and it was the same dirty white shirt guy, running the same path with the same daughter laughing. I said déjà vu aloud and felt a little weird. That feeling of, what in the world? My brother laughed a bit, thinking I was memeing, till he looked and noticed the blue car guy packing again. We pay no mind, thinking maybe he forgot something, and go about talking again until we hear the laugh of the 3 girls. They load up and pass our windows again, getting in the car diagonal of us. Same outfits, same being so funny. By now my brother and I are looking at each other. I mention it's weird, and why is that guy running the same path twice? My brother says maybe he forgot something in the store. We shake it off, and I look at my dying phone at 2% charge, and we note the time is 9:50. My phone dies trying to load up YouTube, and we laugh and talk. My brother takes his switch after some time and notes the time is still 9:50. We were talking for at least a good 5 minutes. We think it's weird, getting a little nervous, but distract each other with jokes. About what feels like 2 or 3 minutes later, the same white shirt guy and daughter run out of the store wailing and laughing. We see it, and now are worried. Turn to the left, and the blue car guy is still packing. My brother comments, maybe we're in a time loop like you said. Then the girls come out and go to their car again. This time we do something different. We watch this white shirt guy load up his daughter in the van and talk to the driver for a bit before getting in and pulling out. I was curious to see if they actually left this time. The girls leave next, and finally the blue car. My brother states if it happens again, we go in the store. We feel like it's been ages waiting till we see our family leave the store and come to the car. They don't believe us, only our father, who likes to read about theories, and then we make note of the time. 9:55 p.m. How did all that happen in what felt like at least 20 minutes happen in 5 minutes? How did we see the same people 3 times doing the same thing 3 times? We aren't tired, and we both witnessed the same events, and both are in agreement. Our family says they felt strange in the store, but leave it at that. What happened to us? It's been on my mind. Were we in a time loop? 14. My sister and I got talking about weird things that happened in the past, and realized that we had experienced one and just didn't tell each other about it because it freaked us both out a little bit. We had forgotten about it until we got to talking. In high school, we drove our parents' hand-me-down car after they bought a new one. It was kind of a piece of crap, but it got us around. On the way home from school one day, one of the tires went flat. We weren't far from home, but we had to pull over, and it just so happened that one of the police officers in the town we lived in at the time drove by and helped us. It's a really small town, and everyone knows each other, so it was no big deal. Kind of like a modern-day Mayberry. Small-town people, small-town cops, that really just patrolled to help with things like that, not a lot of crime. You get the picture. The front passenger side tire had gone flat. He got the spare out of the trunk and changed it for us in like 10 minutes. We chatted a little bit, and he followed us around the corner and up the street to where we were living at the time. We called my stepdad to let him know, and told him which tire it was, and forgot about it the rest of the afternoon. He stops on the way home and gets the tire because he had everything he needed to change it at the house. He went outside and then came back in, and he said that the front passenger side was completely fine, and that the spare was on the front driver's side. We kind of looked at each other, and we were like, no, it was the passenger side. So we walked out and around to the passenger side, and pointed, and we were like, look, that's the spare. He gave us an odd look, and he was like, no, it's not, and we walked over to the driver's side. And sure enough, the dinky donut spare was now on the driver's side. I very distinctly remember it being the passenger side, because we were headed home, and he had jacked up the car from the passenger side and changed it. My sister at the time decided maybe that we just didn't remember it correctly, but I knew we hadn't. She told me yesterday that it has bothered her every time it crossed her mind, because she was sure that it was the passenger side as well. He changed it, and we kept driving it like usual. It freaked me out for a couple of weeks, and then I just wanted to not think about it. This was about 20 years ago, and back then you were just called crazy, and like my sister let herself believe, we just chalked it up to not remembering correctly. There's no way that it wasn't, and we were too scared at the time to tell each other that we knew it wasn't because it made no sense. No one had touched the car, or even been home until my stepdad got home with a new tire. I know it's kind of silly, but we are both very adamant now that we know that it was an anomaly of some sort. Still can't explain it, and still boggles my mind. We wound up telling my mom about it, and it got a little bit weirder after that. The car eventually went to one of my brothers before it completely broke down. He had a similar experience that he had told her about 10 years ago, except it was the back passenger tire. And when he went to go get it changed, they were confirming with him that it was the back passenger tire because the spare was on the back driver's side. He had changed it himself to get to the tire shop, and he wasn't able to explain it. I don't know what it means, but now the same anomaly has happened to the same car twice, with the same scenario. Sends a little shiver down my spine thinking about it. 15. I went missing for 2 hours at my intern workplace. So it's my second day there, but I found the basic needed facilities like the toilet, staircase, lift, emergency exits, and so on. For the level I am on, the toilet is one way, so there is a corner you turn to get to the toilets. At this corner, there is a camera that points away from the doors, so if you have to go to the toilet, you would naturally pass by the camera twice. I go to the office, set down my things, and went to use the toilet. I finished my business and headed back to the office where I see my supervisor and the other person I am supposed to be shadowing. The rest of the people in the team were also standing over my stuff, talking and looking concerned. When I entered, one of my friends, who was also an intern at that place, saw me and honestly said, "She's back!" with so much relief. I looked very confused and I said, "I just went to the toilet." My supervisor just said, "You were in the toilet for 2 hours?" I was like, "What? No, I was in there for 10 minutes max." "And where have you been? We all thought you were missing." "What? I just got out here and went to the toilet. Did no one check the toilet?" "We did, but no one was inside it." "What?" "Well, at least you're okay. Back to work." I was still confused, but brushed it off. During some free time and between tasks, I went to the security officer, who asked to see the camera footage of the toilet on my level. He showed me and saw I had only passed the camera 2 times in between them, and saw one of my colleagues going into the toilet and coming out a few minutes apart. I thanked the officer and went about my work. So yeah, I disappeared for 2 hours in my workplace toilet that only has 1 entrance and 1 exit. Sadly, this isn't the first time. It happens almost once every semester on campus. The longest I disappeared for is like 8 to 10 hours. My friend is well aware of it. I've had medical screenings done and psychological evaluations, but everything seems normal. The toilet is also one of those with 3 stalls, but my coworker swears she opened all 3. 16. I'm a police officer who worked for a small town. For context, I'm also married with 1 child. One afternoon, I woke up around 4:50 p.m. to get ready for the night shift. As I was getting ready, I had this strange feeling that something wasn't right. It didn't seem to bother me too much, and I assumed that I was still just hazy from waking up. I finished getting ready and went out to my car to leave for work. I got about a mile or 2 from my house and the strange feeling returned. This time, I had a voice in my head telling me to turn back home and call out. Being that I work for a small agency, I didn't have the luxury of calling out due to us being short-staffed. I continued my way to work, which is about a 15 to 20 minute drive. As I got closer to town, I began having extreme anxiety to the point where my stomach felt like it was in knots. I got to work and met up with my sergeant. Me knowing that my sergeant was going to leave around 12 a.m. and I would be by myself. I decided to tell him what I was feeling. He shrugged it off and told me just to watch my back. As the night drew on, my anxiety seemed to come and go. It definitely helped talking to my sergeant about it, but as we were in the patrol car talking, I heard a burglary call come out in the county for the same road that I live on. Dispatch advised that they were on the phone with a female subject, and she was hiding in the bathroom with a gun along with her daughter. I immediately opened the computer and realized it was my address. I frantically called my wife multiple times and I couldn't get in touch with her. I began driving as fast as I could to get home. Thankfully, the deputies got there before I could, and everything seemed to be okay. I eventually got to the house and spoke with my wife about it. She stated that the house alarm went off while she was giving my daughter a bath. But what was strange was that the alarm was for a window break. I honestly didn't know we had alarms for windows, and I've never had any alarms for those go off before. It wasn't windy or raining outside either. Part of me wonders if someone may have tried to get in, but freaked out when they heard the alarm. Either way, after that occurred, I returned to work and felt much better. 17. So I've been playing Metroid Dread and streaming it on Twitch for about 2 hours now. I was happy to get it all working, and Metroid is one of my favorite games, so I was a happy camper. I had some issues with my wireless controller earlier and needed to switch the batteries. They are AA batteries, and I have 2 of the same controller because I lost a USB dongle on the first controller, so I bought it again. So now I have 1 dongle and 2 controllers that both work with it. Anyway, I ended up switching around batteries from a miscellaneous drawer and using my other controller. That lasted a good while. I noticed the controller start to get less responsive again, and that is a sign I need to swap out the batteries again, since the ones I just put in were used, not new. Okay, so I beat this scorpion boss thing and save my game. I get up to eat and take a break. I'm downstairs in the kitchen, and I had went downstairs with the intention of getting into the stack of AA batteries, the new ones. Now I kind of forgot about that and was stuffing my face with gummy bears and getting a salad. Total hungry mode. Then a loud noise upstairs. It was startling. I thought for sure something broke or fell. It was so loud and disturbing that I didn't even want to investigate right away. I looked downstairs. I thought it was the chimney for the wood stove making a noise. It wasn't. Just wind blowing through the chimney. We're moving stuff around and doing repairs, so it's literally just a pipe from the ceiling, and no wood stove there right now. I turned on lights. I was kind of spooked. I go into my bathroom and see on the ground is my vanity lights. I had a small set of suction cup vanity lights that I bought as a goof and stuck to my bathroom mirror. They are on the ground. They have been on the mirror for probably a year now. Not too weird, I suppose, but I see the battery lid is popped up on the corner. And wouldn't you know, it's all Type A batteries. I removed the lid and saw 4 Type A batteries and said to whatever that knocked this thing on the ground, "Okay, thanks. There are some batteries, yes." The weirder part is, I stuck the vanity lights back on the mirror exactly where they were, where the markings were for the suction cups already, and it stuck instantly and strong, without effort. I couldn't pull the thing off, so I got my phone out and recorded this all to my Snapchat. I literally can't just pull it off without a great deal of man strength used. In fact, when I did rip it off, it made a really loud sound, and I said, "That's it, that's the sound I heard." That and it falling on the ground violently, I guess. So, does someone really want me to get back to playing Metroid Dread? Or is this like a hint that I need to put new batteries in my vanity lights also? By the way, the batteries in the lights were no help. They are near totally drained. When you turn on the lights, they just flicker and are dim. Creepy, right? AMA or tell me it was just the wind, even though it was eerily quiet and windless the moment I went up there to investigate. Weird stuff happens to me all the time, by the way. 18. Early summer 2020. My husband and I had been isolating at home since the pandemic arrived, and we were running out of ideas for mental and physical stimulation. Somehow we ended up crusading against the invasive English ivy that has steadily blanketed the parks and greenbelts of our Pacific Northwest county. For those unfamiliar with this devilweed, English ivy is basically a parasitical plant, twining itself around trees, telephone poles, buildings, anything that will aid its ruthless drive to climb higher. The ivy is very aggressive, starving the understory of sunlight and nutrients, until entire parks are reduced to unsightly monoculture ivy deserts. The weight of mature ivy plants is enough to topple trees already weakened by pollution and climate change, thereby posing a threat to urban forests. Over the last few years, there has been a concerted effort to remove the plants from public spaces. But after close to 1 million volunteer hours and many millions of dollars, only a small portion of the plants have been eradicated. So hubby and I found out that pulling all-nighters in local parks with some gardening gloves and a few tools was a great way to get fresh air and exercise, get our dog out of the house for a while, and relieve stress, all while helping preserve precious green spaces. For a couple of months, we would do around 3 weeding shifts a week, from midnight until about 4 a.m. Our area was still locked down, and the vampire hours ensured that we could slaughter the weed in peace, without risking encounters with dreaded other people. Ivy removal is simple but hard work. One must pull all shoots and rooted plants in a 5-foot radius around an infested tree, then cut all vines from the trunk up to shoulder height, without being connected to the ground. All ivy higher than the tree will eventually starve and die out. Removing the roots can be very tough depending on the age of the plant. Same with removing the vines from the tree base. Younger, thinner vines can be easily clipped with small hand pruners, while some mature vines boast feeders up to 1 foot wide with the hardness of a thick tree branch. These have to be cut by axe, handsaw, or hatchet, and are a bitch to get through. The vines are also attached to the bark by a series of needle-like hairs, which on older plants worm themselves deep into the wood, making pulling the vine off the tree difficult and potentially traumatic for the tree itself. This brings me, finally, to the glitch. Along an ivy-inundated trail, there is a fence with about 25 feet of very bushy, mature ivy. We had attempted twice to starve the majority of the plant, by finding and hacking through the main feeder vine, which we took to calling the mother. Twice we had cut through layer after layer of small vines to locate, then sever, monstrously huge feeders. Both times, however, there was no change in the massive ivy. It remained stubbornly green and alive. We decided to have one last go at it, and after much hacking and sweating and colorful language, we located a massive snake-like mother, woven around and through the fence posts like a fat and vaguely sinister anaconda. Something about it seemed so alien. The massive hairs poked out like an endless line of lamprey teeth. The loops and walls of it twined in every direction, a Gordian knot of thick and hardened vine. It seemed to almost ripple while we stared, a roided-out beast flexing its unnatural muscles. I felt intimidated by a plant. I could tell my husband felt put off by the thing too, standing uncharacteristically subdued and quiet at my side. Finally, he seemed to shake off his disquiet and pulled out his hatchet. He eyed the spot he would cut through, reared back, and struck a hard blow. The very instant the hatchet head cleaved into the mother, I heard a high-pitched shriek that sounded like it came from the vine he had just cut into. The shriek was medium loud, lasted about 3 seconds, and sounded exactly like one would imagine a B-grade horror film sentient plant would sound if it were shrieking in pain. My husband dropped the hatchet, as though scalded, and looked at me in shock. We stared at each other for a few seconds silently. I don't think either of us wanted to be the first to admit what we had heard, but I eventually managed to ask him if he heard that, to which he instantly responded, "It screamed at me." I am a pretty grounded person. I have never in my 40-plus years experienced anything mysterious, anything that couldn't be explained through logic and critical thought. I have never seen an alien spacecraft or a ghost, never had a dream that accurately predicted future events, or heard my toddler discussing his days of doing the Charleston with his favorite dame. I'm a firm atheist, don't read my horoscope, and have zero belief that my quartz mineral specimens are working some subtle magic upon my chakras. My husband is much the same, a grounded and rational person with the same lack of mystery encounters in his past. We don't spook easily, we don't jump to conclusions. This was fucking bizarre. I tried to find something to explain what we heard. The fence was made of wood. It wasn't the groaning of metal from the force of my husband's hatchet blow. It was nothing like the sound of tree branches creaking in the wind, and it was a windless night besides. It did not sound like any animal I have heard before or since. And I was raised in these woods and mountains, and have encountered plenty of wildlife. Also, having witnessed the behavior of animals in the wild many times, it would be very odd for any creature to have remained within the ivy during all the shaking, hacking, and cutting done previous to the final chop. That being said, if anyone knows of any smallish animal that inhabits specific northwest urban forests, and has a distress or mating call that sounds like it came straight from the soundtrack of a low-budget Roger Corman flick, and is unafraid of humans swinging hatchets, let me know. I've even considered developing a folie à deux, especially as we had been extremely isolated for months at this point, our only contact being our 3 children. However, neither of us has ever knowingly experienced any psychological disorders, and in the years since this event, nothing further out of the ordinary has happened. Additionally, for one of the 2 generally accepted methods of sharing delusions to have occurred, either one of us would have had to have been already in the midst of a psychotic episode, and imposed a delusion upon the other. Or both of us would need to be very much predisposed to psychosis and trigger the symptoms in the other person. For a couple in their early and late 40s with zero history of mental illness, both of these feel like far too much of a reach. However, as isolation and lack of socialization outside the family and primary relationship are known risk factors, I am open to even this remote possibility. This happening may seem like something silly or inconsequential to some of you, but if you had been there and felt the utter strangeness in the air, if you had heard that alien shrieking, you might feel differently. Needless to say, we have not been back to that particular trail, and have abandoned our quest to obliterate invasive ivy from the area. Now we just binge Netflix, like normal people. 19. I'm sure all of you have experienced déjà vu at some point or another in your life. For me, I've always experienced it a lot when I was a young kid, a bit in my 20s, and the odd time in my 30s. I'm now 43, and I can't remember the last time I had déjà vu. I remember when I was younger, I watched a video where a doctor and scientist said that déjà vu was kind of like a brain hiccup. That was his way of explaining it in layman's terms. When I used to have these experiences, it lasted no longer than a brief moment, no longer than 20 seconds or so. But strangely enough, I always got this feeling shortly after having experienced it, that it must mean that I'm getting close to the end of my life. Don't ask me why I thought this, it was just a feeling I can't quite explain. Probably because when it comes to stories or movies, people only ever remember the beginnings and ends for the most part. So maybe it was my brain remembering the ends, I don't know. It's just how I thought. So about a year ago I woke up, ate breakfast at my girlfriend's, took a shower, and then went downstairs to chill on the couch before work. My girlfriend mentioned something to me, and instantly I thought to myself, hey, she said this before. I've been in this position before, even right down to where I was sitting on the couch. She then left for work, and this feeling was growing. It became so bad that I thought moving to a different spot on the couch would help. Nope, because I've done that before too. Maybe trying on the TV would help. It turns on, and it's a news segment I've seen before. In my mind, I thought to myself that I remember this news anchor talking about a car accident in my city that involved 6 people. I thought to myself that if she mentions this, I'm calling in a sick day. Sure enough, she mentions a 3-car accident and 5 were injured and 1 person is in critical condition. Word for word, dude, I was tripping out. I called work and said that I wasn't coming in. Even the way my boss was cool about it, I've relived this conversation exactly the same also. Legit, man, I started having a mini panic attack. For a moment I thought maybe I was on something, but it couldn't be. I don't drink and don't do drugs. I couldn't make sense of it, and it wouldn't stop. I called my mother, and even the conversation I was having with her was the exact same. I kept thinking to myself, I've done all of this already. Honestly, man, I didn't know what to do. It was never this bad, and it wasn't going anywhere. This went on throughout the day, from 8 a.m. all the way to about 3:30. I can go on about this forever, but I'll cut it short here. I've since come to 2 conclusions. Either I was having a mini-stroke and my brain wasn't receiving proper oxygen, or I was the one person who died in that car crash of 6. Lastly, the man who died in that crash died in the hospital around 3:30 p.m. Oddly enough, he was the exact same age as myself. I never could find the name. To me, this was a glitch I'll never forget, and never want to experience again. 20. I live in a small town, with several 19th century era buildings, including a few Napoleonic forts, 4 known ones, that are well known to urban explorers, and have thoroughly been explored and mapped, including one with several tunnels. When I was 16, me and my friends decided it would be a fun day out to go there. We had done this many times and knew the fort by heart, including all exits and entry points that had not been closed up by the council yet. We went in as usual and all seemed normal. We climbed around and had some fun before moving on to the tunnels. We decided to go through the most popular tunnel there, as it was easiest to navigate and one of my friends was a bit claustrophobic. We had gone through this tunnel several times before, and so did many others, so it is very well mapped and usually opens up to just a big empty room, with windows looking in the corner of the fort. This tunnel does fork off in 2 directions, but both lead to similar rooms. However, this time, for some reason, after taking a left at the fork like we usually did, as the room on that side was in a less decayed state, the tunnel opened up to something that to this day, me and my friends could not explain nor replicate. We entered what at first seemed to be the usual room, but we quickly noticed that it was a near-perfect state. No graffiti, no vandalism, no beer cans, charred floor from a campfire, nothing. It was like the place hadn't been touched since it had been converted into a hospital in World War II. We were very confused, but decided to look around. We quickly noticed that this was a completely different fort. We all thought that we had stumbled our way in, and that it had somehow gone unnoticed by urban explorers in the area, and we had found it by pure accident. With little hope, I had tried looking up the coordinates for it, but unfortunately, as was often the case in the area due to these forts essentially being buried, I couldn't get any GPS signal, which did not surprise me. We explored and speculated on the position of the untouched fort for the rest of the day, thinking we had scored gold, having found ourselves the dream hangout area. The tunnel was roughly 1 kilometer long, so we knew it couldn't be far from the known location. After a great day exploring this urban explorer's wet dream, we packed up and left without any problems. We went through the tunnel and popped out the other end in the expected place. This is where it struck us. We took great care in noting our way back through the tunnel in order to find the fort again on our next visit. The route we took was the same as we always did. We had not accidentally deviated or anything. This was the exact same route we usually took. Me and a mate decided to quickly run back to it, just to make sure we arrived at the opening, and as usual the tunnel opened up to the room we had earlier expected. Since then, my friends have tried numerous times to find the fort again. Unfortunately, I cannot take part in the search at the moment for personal reasons. I have tried to find signs of it on Google Earth, but unlike its supposed neighboring fort, it does not appear on there. All research I have done related to this does not seem to indicate the existence of this fifth fort that we saw. To this day, that fort remains some sort of glitch in the Matrix. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Glitch Monthly, episode 21. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like, subscribe, and comment, and share the video around with all your friends and family. Let them see this goodness right here. I know, I'm fat. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Now, also, travel back in time and stop me from saying that last part. It was weird. Right, anyway, where are we? Let me think. This goes up on Thursday, and this video is either a week early or several months late, depending on how you look at it. I'm going to be kind to myself and say it's a week early. Okay, so I do have no birthday shoutouts today. I'm not sure how that would work with being on camera. I might feel weird doing that. But I do have a shouty out that goes to the author of the story, In the Parking Lot with Time Kind of Looping. And that goes to Reddit user Thrasham. Thank you very much for allowing us to use your story, Thrasham. Right, this video, the previous video you listened to there, was recorded live. And it's not just me. It's literally happening on every stream that I watch and every stream that I do. But these bots are getting ridiculous. Just, I think it goes through periods where they come out, then they go away. Some come out in force and then they go away. So hopefully we're getting to the end of it and that's it. But if not, I'll do my best to get rid of them. My moderators will do the best to get rid of them. And we'll just have to plod on as best we can, because I rather enjoy doing the streaming. Okay. Now, I think I've rambled on for enough for one outro, so I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.